Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
The questions that shape the discussion in this video are: in a language classroom, why should English novel be taught? What should be the criteria to select a novel? Why novel is an excellent resource for communicative language teaching approach? Let us begin with the first question. Why should English novel be taught in language classroom? Susan Bassnett and Peter Grundy argue that literature arguably marks the greatest skills a language user can demonstrate. Anyone who wants to acquire a profound knowledge of a language that goes beyond the utilitarian will read literary texts in that language. They further go on to state that the teaching of literature in the language classroom is actually teaching of highly skilled language usage. According to K. A. Nance, developing the skill and habit of literary reading enables and encourages continued language use, helping all students to maintain and improve their skills even after their formal language study ends. This implies that reading for enjoyment and enrichment should be one of the primary goals for integrating study of English novels in a language classroom, as it prevents learning experience from being reduced to tedious language decoding mechanical drill. Through literature, we expose the learners to language within a meaningful as well as purposeful context. But what works against building students' affective response as readers of novels is the assumption that just because they are learning English as a second language, literariness of the text may be beyond their comprehension or may pose hindrance in language acquisition. Due to this perception, often a highly teacher-centered approach is adopted with focus on literary analysis. The result of this misconception is that students may feel that literature is disconnected from their personal experiences or far removed from everyday communication. According to Colley and Slater, this is the reason students fail to make the text their own and avoid sharing their views with one another. Thus, teachers must be mindful that in order to make students feel enthusiastic about reading literature, their role should be that of facilitators rather than that of gatekeepers to the text's meaning. As suggested by Carter and Long, also Lazar, an emphasis on the analysis of a text's language at the expense of students' enjoyment of literature should be avoided. Providing adequate direction and clear scaffolding is vital. Teachers scaffold learning by means of the way they set up literature-based tasks and through their reactions to students' ongoing discussion, guiding them wherever necessary. Learner-centered literature-based activities ensure that students become autonomous learners who develop an appreciation of literature that transcends the language classroom. Examining the possible drawbacks as well as educational opportunities of teaching a novel in language class, Gillian Lazar in Literature and Language Teaching has made the following arguments. 1. Literature provides motivating material. Literature exposes students to complex themes and fresh, unexpected uses of languages. A good novel or a short story may be particularly gripping in that it involves the students in the suspense of unraveling the plot. Second, it provides access to cultural background. While admitting that the relationship between language and culture is not simple, Considering to what extent the literature genuinely represents the culture or totality of a society is difficult to ascertain. Yet, it can be argued that reading literature in English does encourage students to become broadly aware of the social, political and historical events that form the background to a particular play or novel. Also addressing the issue of imposition of imperialistic values identified with teaching of English, Lazar suggests that because English is used globally as first, second and foreign language, exposing students to literature in English would enable them to become aware of the range of cultures from which it is produced. Third, it encourages language acquisition. Literature provides meaningful and memorable contexts for processing and interpreting new language. As it is rich in multiple levels of meaning, involving students in tasks where they have to express their personal responses to the text can accelerate language acquisition. Extensive reading beyond the classroom also supplements the classroom inputs. Fourth, it expands language awareness of students. Lazar cites Widdowson's argument. By asking students to explore sophisticated uses of language, we also encourage them to think about the norms of language use. Fifth, it develops interpretative abilities. Grappling with the multiple meanings and ambiguities of the text in teasing out the meaning enables the learners to develop their capacity to infer implied meaning. This is a useful skill that can be transferred to other situations where interpretation based on unstated or implicit evidence is to be made. Sixth, it educates the whole person. Literature also serves the wider educational function of stimulating the imagination of students to develop critical abilities and emotional awareness. While grappling with the text and the language, they also learn to relate it to the values and traditions of their own society. Now let us consider what should be the criteria to select a novel. The key element in determining the success or otherwise of literature use in language classroom is the choice of literary work. McKay has warned that learning gains may be negatively impacted if the language is too difficult or the subject matter too culturally distant. Certainly, graded readers are one option for teachers in a variety of contexts, but teachers may also choose to use literature as is, texts neither written for language students nor diluted. A question then arises. How can teachers seek to evaluate whether a text may be suitable? Let us consider some significant criteria. A good piece of literary text to use in language classroom is one that has the potential to engage the readers. To ensure this, it should be subjective, thus open to many interpretations. This encourages discussion. Implicit, where the meaning is not obvious, which evokes an aesthetic response in the reader, which means the reader experiences the text and is affected by it. An appropriate level of complexity, which challenges but does not intimidate the learner, which includes themes and content that resonate with the student reader. Some other concerns specific to selecting a novel are: a novel is worth reading and teaching if it is a classic which continues to be relevant to students today, is well written and particularly strong in a single area such as characterization, plot, point of view, dialogue or conflict, contains a universal theme which can be integrated into at least one other curriculum area, speaks to the students' interests, concerns or social issues, exemplifies a desired genre or a style of writing, is grade and ability appropriate, supports your curriculum objectives as well as state standards. Linguistic and cultural complexity are the two major difficulties that are often cited as problems that teachers may face while selecting novels for language classroom. Several solutions have been suggested in this regard. Three of them are simplification using extracts and simple texts. Simplification is not generally favored because it is reductive. The original book is shortened in characters, situations and events, the vocabulary is restricted and the structures are controlled. Extracts are advantageous because they remove the burden of intensive, lengthy reading. However, they are artificially isolated for teaching purposes and do not necessarily cultivate interest in reading in the ESL or EFL learner. Another solution is to use simple texts. There is a vast corpus of simple texts available in literature in English. The emergence of a large body of creative writing in English by its non-native users demands that readers develop critical perspectives for understanding, evaluating and appreciating such literature. This body comes mainly from former British colonies such as countries in the Indian subcontinent, in East and West Africa and in the Caribbean. The works of these non-native writers such as Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, R.K. Narayan, Mulk Raj Anand and so on reveal the intermediary degrees between the indigenous and metropolitan cultures. These texts show the variety of ways in which the author translates social conflicts into literary expression. What makes them unique is the way in which English language has been extended, modified and elaborated to serve the purposes of revealing local and national sensibilities. These literatures also manifest a cultural context that an ESL or EFL learner can identify with. At this stage, let us consider another issue. Should the class concentrate upon the same novel or read different novels independently? Many teachers dissent from such a method where one novel is taught to the entire class, and rightly so. It is but one method that has been abused. It has been urged that students of different abilities and interests should not be straitjacketed by the reading of one book confined in subject matter and in time. But there can be some benefits of focusing on the same novel in a class. Against a background of individual reading, it may be worthwhile to have a common reading experience. This common reading exercise with free discussions should turn up questions on the book, valuable ideas from other readings and actual experience. Learning as a socialized activity then would amplify and clarify the ideas. Individual differences may also be catered through fostering a sympathetic group. In this scenario, enthusiastic students may by contagion motivate others who are less interested. Class discussion may also be beneficial for correcting misapprehensions. Thus, instead of making students read different books and then pooling in the results, students must be made to read the same book and then encouraged to proceed to independent readings. Intensive or extensive reading may be adopted for instruction. Carefully guided exploration, discussion and reflection should be emphasized than simple retelling or repetition during skill-based activities. This way, literary texts can help foster student interaction and collaboration, and this enriches their language learning experience. The significance of interaction is underscored by Colley and Slater, who suggest that a group of students with its various sets of life experiences can act as a rich marshalling device to enhance the individual's awareness both of his or her own responses and of the world created by the literary work. They further argue that if students are involved in using a literary text in class in a more interactive manner, then they would feel that they have made a personal investment which will make it more likely that they will want to extend their understanding of it by personal reading at home. This shows that sometimes in order for students to be encouraged to appreciate the solitary pleasures of literature, they first need to be provided with an opportunity to experience it in the convivial atmosphere of the language classroom. The next question to be discussed is, why novel is an excellent resource for communicative language teaching approach? Carter and Long proposed that a language-based approach to literature makes the text more accessible for students and allows them to engage with it by means of a number of collaborative activities that are learner-centered. Van argues that literature is an excellent vehicle for CLT methods that result in four-skill English language development through interaction, collaboration, peer teaching and student independence. Hence, literature can be used profitably if complemented with the right kind of communicative activities. To conclude this video, I would like to say that the literature selections become the students' textbooks by providing them with illustrated, accurate, interesting and appropriate print which provides a wealth of information via multiple titles. In addition, the selection process is vital because as students interact with high interest literature and content material, the classroom evolves into an arena designed to assist students in making their own decisions about selecting and responding to literature. By providing quality literature titles, the teacher promotes and encourages the development of literacy, content acquisition and creates opportunities for informal assessment and evaluation. Thus, when selecting books, we as teachers need to consider text structure, language and story elements. Beginning with the simple texts, more complex texts can be chosen as the students progress. I hope that by applying the ideas discussed in this video, you all would be able to create a fruitful teaching learning experience in your classrooms. Thank you.